I want you to close your eyes for a second.
Hmm.
Seriously, just for a moment. Block out the room you're in. I want you to put yourself on a podium. It's loud. The lights are incredibly hot, just blindingly bright. And you are the vice president-elect of the United States.
Okay.
You're in the flow, mid-sentence, feeding off the rhythm of the crowd. Your heart's beating a little faster than normal, purely from the adrenaline of the moment.
Right. You're in the zone.
You are totally in the zone. And then something happens.
Yeah.
Not a noise, not an explosion, just a sensation.
Okay, what kind of sensation?
A tiny, sharp displacement of air right beside your ear. Maybe a single hair on your temple moves, just for a fraction of a second.
It feels like a moth flew past, or maybe, a sudden draft from an open door that you didn't even know was there.
Yes, exactly. It's so insignificant that your conscious brain, it barely even registers it.
Your survival instincts don't even kick in because there was no threat signal. Nothing loud, nothing fast coming at you.
Nothing. You don't duck, you don't scream, you instinctively reach up, you smooth your hair back into place, and you keep smiling.
Of course. Yeah.
You finish the speech, you shake the hands, you go home to your family. And you never realize that you were a millimeter away from your head exploding on live television.
Wow. That is the terrifying image we found in the source material this week. It's this silenced bullet scenario.
Right.
And when we say silenced, we're not just talking about the noise. We mean the event itself was, in a way, erased. The bullet passed through the space. The target's head occupied a split second before or a split second after.
It's almost a philosophical problem, isn't it?
It is.
If a bullet misses you, and nobody, literally nobody, hears it.
Yeah.
Did an assassination attempt actually happen?
To the target, no.
Oh.
It's a total non-event. It was just a windy day.
Right.
But to the shooter, it's data. It's a lesson. And that is where this dossier we're looking at, it gets dark very, very quickly. Because while the Secret Service was probably patting themselves on the back for a smooth rally where nothing went wrong, the Predator was recalibrating his scope. They were learning windage. They were learning timing. They were learning.
And that brings us to the core of what we're covering today. This isn't just a story about a close call. We are doing a deep dive into a document that, well, frankly, it makes you question the entire concept of safety.
It really does.
We're looking at the security audit of Vice President-elect Brook Armstrong, and specifically a moment in November where the Secret Service realized that their standard bubble of protection, it might actually be a trap.
Yeah, it's a fascinating case study because it breaks the cardinal rule of law enforcement.
Yeah.
I mean, usually the police wait for the crime to happen.
Right, they react.
They react.
Yeah.
In this case, the head of the detail, a woman named Emmy Froelich, decided to instigate the crime herself. She realized that the only way to know if her team could stop a killer was to hire one.
She hired a wolf to come test the sheep.
She literally did. It's an incredible gambit.
Which is a terrifying management strategy if you really think about it.
Yeah.
But okay, before we get into the audit itself, we have to look at the players here. Because this is not standard procedure.
Not at all.
Emmy Froelich. She's described as incredibly competent, 35 years old, running the detail for the VP-elect.
And you have to understand, she's a woman in a heavily, heavily male-dominated culture. The Secret Service, especially back then, it was a real boys' club.
So she has to be better than everyone else.
Twice as good to get half the respect, She's ambitious, she's sharp, but she's also paranoid in that healthy way a bodyguard needs to be.
And she has this feeling, this suspicion.
She suspects that her team is too comfortable. They're going through the motions, they're running the playbook, but they've forgotten who they're playing against.
So to test them, she doesn't hire a security consulting firm. She doesn't hire some guy in a suit with a clipboard.
Yeah.
She recruits Jack Reacher.
The outsider. The
Yeah.
ghost. This guy he's a legend. Ex-military police major, but now he's a drifter.
What do you mean a drifter?
I mean, no address, no phone, no credit cards. He buys clothes at cheap stores and just throws them away when they get dirty. He travels by bus. He is, for all intents and purposes, invisible to the state.
But there has to be a connection.
Yes.
I mean, she doesn't just pick a random hobo off the street and say, hey, want to try and kill the VP?
No, there's a ghost in the machine, and that's the key.
Okay.
Joe Reacher, Jack's brother. Joe is Secret Service. He was a legend inside the agency, a real thinker, and he was also Froelich's ex-lover.
Oh, there it is?
Yeah. Joe has passed away before this story begins, but his reputation, that's the bridge. Froelich looks at Jack Reacher and she sees his brother. She trusts the bloodline.
And that trust is absolutely vital because, let's be honest, Asking someone to simulate assassinating the vice president is probably a felony in most conversations.
Oh, absolutely. You need to know the guy isn't actually going to do it.
Or worse, sell the vulnerabilities he finds to someone who will. So let's talk about that recruitment. Because this whole scene, it really sets the tone for the physical reality of this world. We find Reacher in Atlantic City. And the source material paints such a bleak picture. It's November. This is not the glitzy Atlantic City you see on postcards.
No, this is the off-season, grimy, freezing reality. The wind is whipping off the ocean, carrying that stinging salt spray. It's the kind of cold that just hurts your face.
And Reacher's there, not gambling, not on vacation. He's protecting an elderly couple.
Two musicians, right. They're worried about getting stiffed on their payment by some club owner.
Which establishes his character immediately. I mean, the guy wants to be in California. He hates the cold. But he's standing on a freezing pier because two old people might lose a paycheck.
It's the knight errant archetype. It's who he is. He just can't walk away from an injustice, no matter how small it seems.
And this leads to a physical confrontation that I think is essential to understanding why Froelich hires him. He's approached by two thugs on the boardwalk.
Fairground scufflers, I think is the term he uses.
Yes. And they look like old-school dock workers. You know, thick wool coats, watch caps. And they stop about 8 feet away from him.
And Reacher, he analyzes this instantly. 8 feet is conversational distance, not ambush distance. If they were pros, they'd either be much closer or much further away with a weapon.
But he spots the anomaly right away. It's freezing out there. Sub-zero wind chill. But these two guys, they aren't wearing gloves.
Which is a massive red flag. I mean, who stands outside in that kind of weather with bare hands?
Right. And their hands aren't just bare, they're jammed deep into their pockets. Now, a normal person sees that and thinks, oh, they're just cold.
But Reacher sees that and he runs a full threat assessment. Why are the hands in the pockets? Is it a gun, a knife? What's going on?
But he concludes it's not a gun. And his reasoning here is great. It's pure physics mixed with just raw street smarts.
Right. He figures if you're holding a pistol in your coat pocket, you can't really make a fist around it easily. It looks bulky. It looks weird.
And a knife.
If you have a knife, you want it out before you engage. You want that advantage. But these guys have their fists clenched inside their pockets. And Reacher realizes what they're holding.
Rolls of quarters.
Rolls of quarters.
Okay, so for our listeners who haven't spent much time in, let's say, 1970s street fights, we should probably walk through the roll of quarters trick. Is that actually effective, or is it just something you see in movies?
Oh, it's surprisingly effective. It's old school street tech. A human hand is actually a collection of small, fragile bones, metacarpals.
Right.
If you punch someone in the skull, which is basically a giant, hard bowl of bone, you are just as likely to break your hand as you are to hurt them.
So the coins act as a kind of stabilizer.
It does two things. First, it adds mass. A roll of quarters weighs about half a pound. That adds kinetic energy to the swing. Force equals mass times acceleration, right? You increase the mass, you increase the force.
Okay.
But more importantly, it makes the fist solid. It turns a collection of loose bones into a single, dense club. It prevents the bones from compressing on impact.
It turns a slap into a sledgehammer.
Precisely. But it also tells Reacher something crucial about their psychology.
Which is?
These guys are confident, but they are amateurs. They're bullies. They expect to intimidate him, maybe throw one heavy punch, and win. They aren't killers. Killers don't fiddle with loose change.
So Reacher is standing there freezing cold, facing two guys with weighted fists. The odds are 2 against 1. Most people would, I don't know, run.
Reacher doesn't run, he calculates. And this is where we see the difference between just a brawler and a real tactical thinker. He doesn't just start swinging, he manipulates their OODA loop.
The what loop?
The OODA loop. It's a military concept. Observe, orient, decide, act. He gets inside their decision cycle.
He does the hair comb move.
It's absolutely brilliant. He waits for a gust of wind. He just raises his hand to his head. To the thugs, this looks like a vanity move. Oh, this guy's fixing his hair. He's not ready to fight.
It confuses them.
For a split second, they relax. Their brains are trying to process this non-threatening action. And in that tiny gap, Reacher just explodes.
The description of the violence here is, well, it's clinical. It's not a movie fight with a lot of back and forth punching. It's over in 2 seconds.
One elbow to the face. One elbow to the throat. Bone on bone. The source material describes the sound like a crack of dry wood. It's over before they even get their hands out of their pockets.
And the quarters go flying all over the pier.
And all the while, Froelich is watching this happen.
She sees the capacity for controlled, precise, intelligent violence, she realizes this is the man she needs. Not a soldier who just follows orders, but a predator who understands violence from the inside out.
Exactly.
So she makes the pitch. She wants him to audit the security. Reacher accepts, but he has two conditions.
Right. First, he gets to work somewhere cold because he just bought a heavy coat and doesn't want to waste the money.
Which is just a great character detail.
It is. And second, Froelich has to make sure the old musicians get paid what they're owed.
Of course.
So he brings in a partner, Francis Neagley, and together they conduct this 5-day audit.
And this is where our deep dive really begins. Because the results of this audit are, well, they're devastating. They score 3.5 kills against the Secret Service.
3.5 successful assassinations in 5 days against the best bodyguards on the planet.
It's unbelievable.
Okay.
So let's break these down because each one exposes a completely different flaw in the system.
Okay, scenario 1 is the ballroom. This is a classic close protection environment, a fundraising gala.
You've got metal detectors at the door, ID checks, 1,000 guests in tuxedos and evening gowns.
The Secret Service creates what they call a hard perimeter. The whole theory is keep the weapons out and the principal is safe.
But that relies on your technology working, on being able to detect the weapon.
And that's the flaw. Neagley creates a fake identity, Elizabeth Wright from New Jersey. She donates some money, she gets a legitimate invitation, she's inside the room, but she still needs a weapon.
And this is where the tech gets really scary. She brings a ceramic knife, specifically a baker from Solingen, Germany. Now, when I hear ceramic knife, I'm thinking of those white kitchen knives you see on late-night TV for slicing tomatoes. Is that what she brought into a room with the vice president?
It's a similar concept, but a completely different grade of tool. The material is zirconium dioxide. Technically, it's a ceramic, but that word is misleading because we associate ceramics with, a coffee mug that shatters if you drop it.
Right.
This is industrial-grade tech. It's sintered at thousands of degrees. It's incredibly durable.
How hard is it compared to, say, a standard steel combat knife?
Okay, so on the Mohs scale of mineral hardness, diamonds are a 10. Hardened steel is about a 5 or a 6.
Inno stuff.
Zirconium dioxide is an 8.5. It is incredibly hard. That means it can be honed to an edge that is actually sharper than a surgical scalpel, and it will hold that edge almost indefinitely.
But the hardness isn't really the selling point for an assassin, is it? I mean, it's the
magnetic signature.
Right.
Exactly. It's non-ferrous. It has 0 magnetic footprint. You can walk through the most sensitive magnetometer at an airport or a federal building, and the machine will read it as nothing. It's completely invisible to their primary screening tool.
So Neagley Reacher's partner, she walks into this gala. She's wearing a nice dress. She's got a forged but convincing invite. And she has this invisible blade. Where is she even hiding it?
In the source material, it's just taped to her thigh or maybe in a small pocket in her purse. It doesn't really matter. The security theater, the metal detectors, the wanding, it's all designed to catch guns and steal knives.
She just walks right through.
She walks right through. She is now inside the bubble.
And this leads to the confrontation with Armstrong. And this is the part that really unsettled me. She doesn't jump out from behind a curtain. She doesn't make a scene. She just gets in line.
She gets in the receiving line. She waits her turn. She smiles. Armstrong reaches out to shake her hand. And Reacher describes this later using a film reference. He calls it the John Malkovich scenario.
From the movie In the Line of Fire.
Right. And the premise is simple and terrifying. Secret Service protection, at its core, relies on the assumption that the assassin wants to survive.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, if you want to shoot and run away, you have to do it from a distance. That gives the agents a chance to spot you, to react, to cover the target.
But if you don't care about surviving?
If you're willing to trade your life for the target's life, a suicide mission, then the perimeter is meaningless. Neagley holds Armstrong's hand. She pulls him in just a little too close, throwing him off balance, and she presses the flat of her hand against his carotid artery.
And she whispers, I have a knife.
And in a real scenario, that 3-inch blade would have severed the artery. He would have lost consciousness in 5 seconds and bled out in 30. The agents would have shot Neagley a second later, sure, but the mission would be a success. It's a checkmate.
That's 1 kill. Okay, scenario 2 was arguably more brutal because it wasn't a precision strike like that. It was a war scenario. This was the home invasion.
Right. So Armstrong has a private residence in the Lake Country south of Bismarck, North Dakota. The service is patrolling the perimeter. They have agents at the doors. They have state troopers in cars on the roads. It looks secure.
But Reacher and Neagley don't just drive up the driveway.
No. They treat it like a military objective. They use infantry stealth tactics. They low-crawl through the fields at night. They use the terrain to mask their heat signatures from any potential thermal imaging.
And they get close.
They get within 50 feet of the house. They took infrared photos to prove it to Froelich later. They were right there.
And their hypothetical weapon here wasn't a little ceramic knife.
No. This was the brute force option. They calculated that with M16 rifles and phosphorus grenades, they could launch a synchronized attack from two sides at once.
Phosphorus grenades.
Mm-hmm.
It just sounds excessive. Why phosphorus?
White phosphorus is nasty, nasty stuff. It burns at around 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It creates a massive amount of thick, blinding white smoke almost instantly.
So you launch those at the front and back of the house simultaneously.
And you do two things. One, you set the structure on fire immediately. It's an incendiary. Two, you completely blind the defenders.
So the agents inside are coughing. They can't see anything. The house is burning down around them.
And in that chaos, Reacher and Neagley would open fire with automatic rifles. It's not an assassination at that point. It's a liquidation. They would destroy the house and everyone in it.
It's a completely different kind of threat.
The Secret Service is trained for protection, shielding the body, getting the principal to a safe car. They aren't equipped or trained to fight off a coordinated military squad assault on a fixed position.
It's a category error.
Yeah.
They're playing cops and robbers. Reacher is playing war.
Exactly. And that brings us to scenario 3, the sniper. This is the classic fear, right? The long-range shot.
This was at a church community center. Armstrong is doing an outdoor rally. Reacher hides in the church bell tower. Now, usually the Secret Service sweeps these high points, don't they?
They do, and they did. They swept the church. They used trained dogs to sniff for explosives and, human intruders.
But Reacher anticipated the sweep.
He was smarter than the sweep. First, he went up early, way early, like 5 a.m. He just waited for hours. But here is the tradecraft nugget that I found absolutely fascinating. He sprinkled pepper on the ladder rungs leading up to his hideout.
Just normal black pepper from a shaker.
Just pepper. See, a dog's nose is thousands of times more sensitive than a human's. When the dog sniffs that ladder, the pepper acts like tear gas to it. It irritates the mucous membranes instantly. The dog sneezes, it backs away, maybe it whimpers.
So why doesn't the handler just say, hey, my dog is reacting to something here?
That's the human error Reacher's counting on. The handler assumes the dog is just being lazy, or it smells a rat, or it just doesn't want to climb the rickety old ladder. They trust the dog's clear signal everywhere else in the building, so they don't force it up this one ladder.
He's exploiting the gap between the dog's senses and the handler's interpretation.
Exactly. He relies on the handler being a little lazy or just misinterpreting the signal, so Reacher remains completely undetected.
And when Armstrong comes out for the rally,
Reacher had a perfectly clear line of sight. It was a winless day. He said later he could have shot his eyes out. But his escape plan was equally ruthless. He wouldn't just shoot Armstrong.
what was the plan?
He planned to shoot 3 or 4 bystanders in the stomach immediately after the primary shot.
Which sounds horrific. Why shoot random people?
Panic. Chaos. If one man falls, people freeze, they look. If 5 people in different parts of the crowd are screaming and bleeding, the crowd stampedes.
Right.
The police are overwhelmed with multiple casualties, ambulances are screaming. In that mass confusion, Reacher just slips out the back door of the church and blends into the chaos.
It's the Edward Fox scenario from The Day of the Jackal. The professional who plans every detail to get away with it.
It seems like there is no winning here. If you seal the perimeter, they sneak in. If you check the guests, they use ceramic weapons. If you secure the building, they beat the dogs.
And that's just the 3 full points. What was the half point?
The half point was Wall Street. Reacher smuggled a simulated rifle into a high-rise office building overlooking the stock exchange. He hid a piece of wood cut into the shape of a rifle inside a computer monitor box.
He got it in. So why was it only a half point?
Because of the physics of New York City. The expert analysis in the dossier here is fascinating. Reacher notes that the wind currents in a place like Manhattan are completely chaotic.
The urban canyon effect.
Exactly. They swirl around the skyscrapers. You have thermals rising from the hot pavement and subways. You have downdrafts coming off the sheer faces of the buildings. A bullet has to travel through 3 or 4 different wind zones just to reach the target a few blocks away.
So you can't reliably calculate the shot.
Reacher calls it a lottery. A true professional wouldn't risk the shot because a miss immediately reveals their position for no gain, but an idiot or an amateur might try it. So it has to be considered a half threat.
So Froelich receives this dossier. Her team failed 3.5 times in 5 days. She must be devastated. But then comes the twist. She didn't just order this audit for practice.
No. This is where the story shifts from a theoretical exercise to a full-blown thriller. Froelich reveals they have been receiving specific, highly sophisticated death threats. The audit was a response to a real, active threat.
Okay, so let's look at the letters themselves, because the forensic detail here is just incredible. The message is simple. You are going to die. But the object itself, the paper, tells a much more complex story.
It really does. Reacher and Froelich, they analyze the physical letters. First, the paper stock. It's Georgia Pacific, high-bright, acid-free laser stock.
Which is pretty common, right? I mean, I could go buy that in an office supply store right now.
You could, but it's the expensive stuff. It's the kind of paper you buy if you want your documents to last for 100 years in an archive, or if you just have money to burn. But the printer is the real key.
Yeah.
They identify it as an HP laser, but specifically a vertical feed model.
They call it a toaster-style printer.
Right, because the paper stands up in a slot in the back and pops out the front, just like a piece of toast. Now, why does that matter?
I don't know.
No.
Why?
Because big corporate offices don't use toaster printers anymore. They use big, flat bed trays that hold 500 sheets at a time. A toaster printer is a home office machine. It's the kind of thing that sits on a desk in someone's den.
So immediately the profile shifts. We aren't looking for a disgruntled employee stealing stationery from his corporate job. We're looking for a guy printing threats from his bedroom.
And he's careful. Incredibly careful. They find traces of talcum powder on the edges of the paper.
Talcum powder?
From what? From disposable latex gloves. But here's the cool science part. They found unbaked talcum smudges. Laser printers use a fuser unit, a super hot roller, to melt the toner onto the page.
Okay.
If the powder had been on the paper before it went through the printer, the heat would have baked it right on. It would have a different chemical signature.
So the fact that it's unbaked means?
It means he put the gloves on after the page came out of the printer. He never touched the paper with his bare skin. He printed it, put on his gloves, picked it up, folded it, and put it in the envelope.
And no DNA, right?
None. He sealed the envelope flap with tap water, not saliva.
This guy is a total ghost. He leaves nothing behind. Except he does leave something. And it's completely baffling.
The signature. After all those forensic countermeasures, the gloves, the water, the pristine paper, the sender intentionally presses his thumb firmly onto the bottom of the page. A massive, clear thumbprint.
Why? It feels like he's taunting them.
It is a power move. It is pure psychological warfare. He's saying, I am not afraid of you. You can have my print and you still won't catch me.
And he's right, isn't he?
He's right. They run the print through every database they have, FBI, military, civil service, you name it, nothing. He's never been arrested, never served in the armed forces. He's a ghost.
But the print itself gives them clues. It's huge. The dossier says 1.5 inches wide.
Which suggests a very large man. But the chemical analysis of the residue left behind in the print is where things get really, really weird. The FBI lab finds traces of something called squalene.
Squalene. Okay, that sounds like something you'd find in a biology textbook.
It is. It's an organic oil. But specifically, the report identifies it as shark liver oil.
Shark liver oil.
Yeah.
So is the assassin a fisherman? Is that the theory?
That's the immediate thought. Is he a shark fisherman from Florida? Or a fishmonger in a market? Froelich starts looking at lists of people with commercial fishing licenses. But Reacher digs a little deeper. He realizes that squalene isn't just fish guts. It has industrial applications.
A lubricant.
A very specific, very high-end lubricant. Because it doesn't gum up or freeze easily, it was used for decades in very fine, delicate machinery.
Like what?
Like antique clocks or high-end mechanical watches. Things with tiny, intricate gears.
So we have a profile that is just shifting wildly. We've gone from a home office guy to a giant shark fisherman to a delicate watchmaker.
It just highlights the difficulty of criminal profiling. A single chemical trace can send you down a dozen different rabbit holes. But the size of the thumb, that 1.5 inch width, that leans away from the delicate watchmaker. It suggests manual labor. Rough hands. So they are stuck with this insane contradiction. A giant man with rough hands who uses delicate antique oil and works from a home office.
It's a puzzle. And while they are puzzling over the shark oil, a new problem emerges. And this one hits much closer to home. Literally inside their home. Inside the Secret Service itself.
The locked room mystery. This is a classic. One of the threat letters didn't come through the mail. It just appeared on the desk of Stuyvesant, Froehlich's boss, inside a secure Secret Service facility.
And we're talking about a truly secure environment. Badges, cameras, armed guards. You can't just wander in there off the street.
So Reacher and Neagley review the security tapes. It's agonizing work, just hours and hours of footage, and the timeline is impossible. Stuyvesant leaves his office, his desk is clear. His secretary leaves later, his desk is still clear. The door is closed and locked.
And the next morning,
the letter is sitting right there in the middle of his desk. The only people who entered the room overnight were the night cleaning crew.
Julio, Anita, and Maria.
The cleaners. Now, these are people who've been vetted, of course, but they're also the invisible workforce, the people nobody pays attention to.
So Reacher and Neagley decide to go pay them a visit, to interview them. And this scene in the dossier, it just breaks my heart a little bit. They go to their house. It's in a rough, poverty-stricken neighborhood in D.C. It's clear they don't have a lot of money.
And there's this one detail that really stuck with me. The front door is blocked.
By a children's seesaw. A big plastic backyard toy.
Why is it inside?
Because if they leave it outside in their yard, it gets stolen.
Right.
Every single night, they have to drag this heavy, awkward seesaw into their tiny living room. They have to climb over it just to answer the door.
Wow.
It paints such a vivid picture of their lives. They're just trying to provide a normal, happy childhood for their kids in a place where you can't even leave a plastic toy on the porch.
It humanizes them instantly. These aren't international spies. They're just parents.
Exactly. And when Reacher questioned them, they are just stone-faced, stoic. They deny everything. Neagley plays bad cop.
Yeah.
She threatens them with jail, with losing their benefits, with deportation.
And they just sit there. The father, Julio, just says, whatever happens, happens.
That fatalism tells you a lot about their lives.
Okay.
They're used to being pushed around by forces bigger than them. But here's the thing that makes no sense. The Secret Service gave them a polygraph test. And they passed. All of them.
Which should be impossible if they planted the letter. A polygraph just measures your stress response. Lying creates stress. If they put the letter there, they should have spiked the needle right off the chart.
But Stuyvesant, the boss, he has a theory, and it's a terrifying one. He thinks they pass because they believe they're innocent.
Right. How do you beat a polygraph? The easiest way is to tell the truth. But what if your truth is a lie you've been fed by someone you trust?
Walk us through that. How does that work?
Okay, imagine an insider, someone within the Treasury Department or the Secret Service, someone with a badge and a uniform, someone the cleaners recognize as a boss. This person approaches Julio in the hallway one night.
Okay.
He hands him the letter. He says, "Hey, Julio, we're running a security test tonight, a drill. I need you to put this piece of paper on Mr. Stuyvesant's desk. It's a secret mission to test the internal mail system. Don't tell anyone, even if they question you. It's a test of your loyalty to the service."
So in Julio's mind, he isn't planting a death threat. He's helping the service. He's doing a good job. He's being a patriot.
Exactly. So when the polygraph operator asks him, "Did you do anything malicious? Did you try to hurt the vice president?" Julio can look him right in the eye and honestly answer no, and the machine reads it as the truth.
Wow. Which confirms the absolute worst-case scenario. The threat is coming from inside the building.
Someone within the agency is orchestrating this whole thing. They are using the cleaners as unwitting pawns.
So now the board is set. We have an insider threat manipulating the staff. We have an outsider threat with the shark oil and the giant thumbprint. And then the letters escalate. They promise a demonstration.
A demonstration of your vulnerability will be staged today. That's the message. And this leads to one of the most tense sequences in the entire dossier.
It starts with the garage incident. Froehlich gets a call. Another letter was dropped off. But this time, it wasn't mailed or left on a desk. It was hand-delivered to the guard booth in the secure parking garage.
They pull the tapes immediately.
And they see a man. He's wearing a hat, the brim pulled low, a heavy coat. He walks up to the booth, and the tradecraft here is just impeccable.
He knows exactly where the cameras are. He keeps his head angled down so the lens only sees the top of his hat. He never looks up, not once.
And more importantly, he knows the guard's schedule.
He knows exactly when the guard takes his 5-minute bathroom break. The booth is empty for maybe 90 seconds. He walks up, slips the letter in through the window slot, and just walks away.
And Reacher realizes something absolutely sickening while he's watching this tape.
He realizes the timeline. He and Neagley drove out of that exact garage to go interview the cleaners at exactly that time. They drove right past this man.
They were feet away from the killer.
Feet away. And they didn't see him. Why? Because he looked like just another guy in a coat in November. He blended in perfectly. It emphasizes that true invisibility isn't about being transparent. It's about being utterly unremarkable.
So the tension is just ratcheted up to 11. The demonstration is promised for today, and Armstrong, the vice president-elect, decides, against all advice, that he wants to go for a walk.
Of course he does. He's a politician. He feeds on people. He has a meeting at the Department of Labor, and instead of taking the armored limo the 2 blocks, he wants to walk across Capitol Plaza.
He wants fresh air. He wants to wave to the tourists.
And Froelich is just freaking out. This is a complete nightmare scenario for a protection detail.
So Reacher's on the ground. He's scanning the crowd. Neagley is checking the perimeters. And Armstrong sets off. He's surrounded by agents, but he's out in the open. A perfect target.
And then it happens. A man lunges at him.
A disheveled guy. Looks like a street person.
Mm-hmm.
He breaks through the police line and just charges right at the VP.
The detail reacts instantly. They are trained for this. They collapse in on Armstrong, forming a human shield. They grab the attacker. It's a textbook cover and evacuate response.
Except Reacher sees the flaw, the tactical flaw.
Good. When they all collapse on the attacker in front of Armstrong, they turn their backs to the rest of the world. They create a huddle. For a few crucial seconds, Armstrong is completely exposed from the rear. If the crazy guy was just a distraction, a decoy, then a sniper on a roof or a second attacker in the crowd would have had a clean, unobstructed shot at Armstrong's back.
It's the magician's trick. Look at the left hand while the right hand does the work.
But no shot comes. And Armstrong, he does something extraordinary, or maybe extraordinarily foolish. He actually stops. He tells the agents to let the guy up. He wants to talk to the attacker.
It turned out to be a false alarm. Just a disturbed individual who wanted to talk about a grievance. But Armstrong shows this incredible, perhaps reckless politician's instinct.
It perfectly highlights the central conflict of his character. He wants to be a man of the people. He hates the bubble. But the bubble is the only thing keeping him alive.
It raises that question. Can you be a truly democratic leader in an age of terror? If you are accessible, you are vulnerable. If you are secure, you are isolated.
And Armstrong is trying to walk that impossible line, and it's giving Froelich a complete ulcer.
This brings us to the philosophical core of the episode. Stuyvesant, the big boss, sits everyone down after this incident. And he doesn't yell. He talks about baseball.
I love this analogy because it is so cold and yet so logical. He says a baseball season is 162 games long. Even the best teams, the World Series champions of the New York Yankees, they lose 50 or 60 games a year. You cannot win every single time.
But in baseball, a loss just means you drop in the standings. In the Secret Service, a loss means a dead president.
And Stuyvesant argues that you have to accept that. You have to accept that errors will happen, breaches will happen. You cannot be perfect. He says a 94-95% success rate, losing one president out of 18 they've protected, is actually a triumph in their business.
That is a hard pill to swallow if you're the agent on duty during that 5%. Sorry, boss, just statistical error on my watch.
It sounds callous, but is a psychological mechanism for survival. If you strive for 100% perfection every second of every day, you will burn out. You will become paranoid. You will jump at every shadow. Stuyvesant is saying they have to manage risk, not eliminate it, because eliminating it is impossible.
Reacher brings a completely different philosophy to the table, though. He isn't interested in baseball stats. He quotes Karl Marx, or rather his brother Joe's interpretation of Marx.
Who bono? Who benefits? This is how Reacher tries to solve the insider versus outsider riddle.
Okay, break that down for us, because this is the logic that's going to drive the investigation forward.
Reacher says you have to look at the ultimate goal. If the threat is an insider, what is their benefit? Do they really want Armstrong dead? Probably not. If the VP-elect is assassinated on your watch, the whole federal government descends on the agency. Everyone gets investigated, careers are ruined. The insider risks getting caught in that net.
So what do they want then?
They want Froelich to look incompetent. They want her to panic and make a mistake. They want her to fail to stop the threats, not the death. The benefit for the insider is career advancement. They want her job.
And if it's an outsider?
The benefit is much simpler. The benefit is the political or personal gratification from the assassination itself. They want the target dead, period.
So Froelich is completely stuck. She has to defend against a rival who wants her fired and a killer who wants her client dead. What is the strategy?
Reacher tells her she has to do two things simultaneously. First, she must remain calm. If she panics, if she overreacts and screws up, the insider wins. By staying calm and professional, she denies them their benefit.
Okay. And second?
Second, she must be successful. She must keep Armstrong alive at all costs. If she does that, she denies the outsider their benefit.
It's a brilliant, dual-pronged strategy. Treat the threat as real to stop the killer, but treat the investigation as a game to stop the rival.
Precisely. It turns her defense into an active weapon against both threats at the same time.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, where does that leave us? What's the state of play?
It leaves us in a very, very precarious position. We have a charismatic vice president-elect who hates security and insists on walking into crowds.
We have a skilled, meticulous adversary who knows forensic countermeasures, uses shark oil, and leaves taunting thumbprints.
We have a potential traitor inside the Secret Service itself, manipulating the cleaning crews and planting evidence.
And we have Reacher and Neagley, the outsiders, the wolves who are hired to guard the sheep because the sheepdogs themselves can't be trusted.
It's an incredibly volatile mix, and I want to leave you, our listeners, with a final thought about that demonstration letter, the one that said a demonstration would be staged today.
The crazy guy in the plaza. Reacher doesn't think that was it, right?
No, Reacher doesn't think so. The crazy guy was too random, too chaotic. Reacher suspects that if the crazy guy wasn't the demonstration, then the real demonstration hasn't happened yet. Or, and this is the really scary thought, maybe the demonstration was the letter itself.
How so? What do you mean?
Go back to the garage incident, the man in the hat walking up to the guard booth. He proved that he could get close enough, completely undetected, to insert an envelope into the secure perimeter. He touched the guard booth. Meaning, if that envelope had contained anthrax powder, if it had been a small contact bomb, if he had simply tossed a grenade into the booth instead of a letter, the damage would be done. He successfully breached the perimeter.
In a world of total surveillance, with cameras everywhere, he walked up, delivered a package to the heart of the beast, and just walked away without anyone noticing.
Exactly. He didn't need to shoot anyone to prove his point. He proved he was invisible. And in the world of security, invisibility is the ultimate power move, because if you can't be seen, you can't be stopped.
That is a terrifying thought to end on. If you were the protector, would you trust the machine, the systems, the protocols? Or would you hire the wolf?
I think after reading this dossier, I'd want the wolf. Every single time.
Me too. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.